What's up? Uh,
Oh, cool. So small committee here. That's perfect. I will have time to get more into details. Okay, let's go. So um, I actually wanted to do like a normal pitch where we begin by explaining like general concepts and then do my kind of shilling part at the end. I decided to go the other way. I do the shilling first and then we go into the real thing. So the shilling part. So we are Status Network. We are a gasless, private and rewarding L2. What does that mean? It means that in the L2, we built a bunch of cool features such as the fact that it's gasless, so there is no gas on the network. It's all based on reputation. Second part is it's private. We have an opt-in composable privacy layer. I will get more into that. And finally, it's rewarding, meaning we have a sustainable native yield that can be shared among all participants. So how does it work? Basically, the way we think about blockchains right now is gas has a few properties, such as it limits spam, its network revenue, and that's basically it. But the reality is that now, if you look at the blocks on Base, for example, 85% of it is just bots. It's mostly spam. So the spamming protection with gas doesn't really work. And if you look at network revenue, only Base and Arbitrum are actually breaking even at the moment. All of the other L2s are losing money. So clearly, the L2 business model doesn't make sense at the moment. So the idea here was like, how about we just don't have gas anymore and we replace it entirely with a reputation system. So the way it works is that users can deposit assets, they can bridge to the network, they can provide liquidity, and then based on that, they get rewarded with reputation. That reputation unlocks two things. First, it unlocks gasless transactions. So the higher reputation, the more gasless transactions you can do on the network. And the second unlock is that reputation can also be used to vote on the allocation of the public funding pool. And I think this is like kind of a crucial new way to look at L2s, more as a way to get revenue from bridge yield and from native app fees. And ultimately, the goal is really to have boosted yield in a very, I would say, organic, non-leveraged, non-liquidity table, I would say, way. Because that's the main issue right now. If you are looking for yield, you need to leverage if you want to get a higher yield. Here, the L2, the way it works is that it enables this chain directly to provide higher yield for concentrated liquidity pairs and for private assets. And let's get to the private assets part. So the L2 is a public ZK EVM. So nothing fancy about it. It's a linear fork. So we don't have anything special. You have normal smart accounts on it, EOA, smart accounts, multi-sigs, whatever, all work as usual. But this is where the magic happens. When you interact with apps, any DeFi apps, any DeFi protocol, you can basically either go in a public way, so as you usually do, or you can use a privacy layer. And we think that this is the next unlock for L2s in particular, where each L2 and each chain is going to have its own privacy layer, where people can deposit and withdraw, and then use that privacy layer to interact with DeFi protocols. And remember, I said that we were gasless. What does that have to do with it? Well, one of the biggest issues in privacy at the moment is the gas linkage. So you have, let's say you want to fund a relayer to make a transaction for you. Then you need to send it gas. You need to have a paymaster account. You need to basically have a way to enable arbitrary actions by relayers. And so you need to set gas apart for them. You need to have a whole infrastructure to support that. Our goal is basically to get rid of all of that and enable gasless ephemeral accounts and gasless ephemeral relayers. A big unlock of that is, for example, being able to say, I want to deposit into Morpho privately. If you do it directly, you're going to create a gas linkage between you and the Morpho interaction. And on top of that, you're also going to have a time-based linkage, meaning if you deposit to the privacy pool and immediately from the privacy pool deposit into Morpho, we can track directly that this is the same account that did that because the time are very close. With the gasless relayers, you can basically have time-based functions. You can just say, in 1 week, deposit into Morpho. And then suddenly you break all linkage between your original account, the public one, and the actual action that happens on chain, ultimately. And since we are at a compliance summit, I think it's super important to mention that at this level, and this level, we can have like full compliance, meaning you can do AML checks, you can do OFAC checks, you can do all this kind of stuff. And finally, the rewarding part, I think this is where it gets very interesting, is like, and I will talk a bit more about that later, it's one of the biggest issues with privacy at the moment is that it's not profitable to go private. Meaning you can't earn yield on private deposits. The best you can do at the moment is basically ST-ETH on a privacy pool, or I think they accept SUSDS now, not even sure. So you have very basic interactions and very basic yield, and it's not composable with DeFi. So here the idea is to create concentrated liquidity on chain of already yield-bearing tokens, and then add another native yield on top of that so that you have boosted yield for all those assets. And that unlocks a lot of really cool stuff because you have, those assets are basically ERC20s, and you can compose them with DeFi, and you can also export them to other accounts. Meaning, if you catch my drift, you can basically do shielded multi-chain transactions. And yeah, so you increase your on-chain liquidity. You're able to have superior organic yield, non-leverage, you can't get liquidity on it. You have increased privacy, because then suddenly your privacy set, it's much larger. It gets much more liquidity inside it. So then as an account, you are much more shielded. With support with 7702, you can zap in and zap out, meaning getting to that kind of complex assets is as easy as just one click. And this is where we want to go. We want to make privacy available for everyone in a very simple way, in a very seamless way, integrated directly within the wallets. We don't have, as a wallet, you don't have to do anything to get access to that. And finally, as I mentioned, it unlocks private bridging, multi-chain bridging. And we've been in touch with a lot of solvers recently, because for solvers, it's a way for them to park their liquidity in a shielded pool and just interact with the different chains at the moment that they need to, when in an intent-based system, for example. And because it's gasless, they don't also have to necessarily keep gas on that chain to be able to do the cross-chain transfers. So it's really like a huge unlock that we're doing now with that structure. And I was mentioning like one of the biggest issue of privacy is that it's not yielding. And if you look at the current shielded ETH, it's a bit ridiculous, to be honest. Like you have Tornado Cash, which is still pretty big. It's around $1 billion dollar of ETH. But that's kind of legacy. It's just because ETH has been there for a while. No one is really using Tornado Cash anymore. The second next one is Railgun. It's 52 million. It's nothing compared to the 300 billion of ETH. So why? I think it's because of two reasons. First, because it's still very clunky to get access to. I mean, I don't know if you use Railgun, but you need to download a wallet. You need to have like at least 2 or 3 transactions before being able to shield your assets. And then it's not yielding, and it's not composable with DeFi. So you have kind of that weird clunky interface, and you're not sure what the benefits you're getting in the end. So I'm pitching a lot of stuff. When is that happening? So right now we have a live testnet. So it's a ZK VM based on Linear. Next week, we are going to release the pre-deposit vaults. SNT, Linear, ETH, and USD will be accepted. And the testnet v2 will already include the spam protection. So quick note, the spam protection works with ZK proof that each user needs to post to the chain to prove that they're not spamming the chain. It's called RLN, Rate Limiting Nullifiers. It has been a PSC and Ethereum Foundation program for a while, and now we are basically expanding it to blockchains. And finally, mainnet launch early next year, and we will have the native yield distribution, and we'll have also the privacy layer built in. What are the use cases? So we believe that gasless UX plus privacy is really the unlock that we need to have mass adoption. And as long as we don't have both, it's going to be very hard to offer good financial products to normal users. And the yield is what is going to make privacy attractive for people. Selling privacy to people is very hard. Selling a good yield and be like, oh, by the way, it's private, I think this is a good unlock. But the problem, of course, it needs auditability. So you need to have built-in compliance. And how do you get there? So to get to the compliance, we need to first look at the use cases. And actually, it's a lot of different use cases. I just listed, like, top of my head, what I can see there. Payroll and savings. Of course, like, I'm getting paid in ETH. Everyone can just see my wallet and how much I'm getting paid. So it doesn't make sense, really. You don't want to go to a store, buy a banana, and then suddenly they have access to your whole bank accounts just because you bought like $1 of a banana. So this is very basic, but it's still not possible in blockchains. So we need to have that working. Same for game economies. Originally, the chain was really meant to be a chain for games because we will be able to offer gasless transactions at scale, but also that privacy layer that is important for, gacha systems, that is important for fog of war, and all the kind of stuff. Like in games, if all the information is known, then there is no game. I mentioned that quickly about the solvers, but yeah, market makers are also very interested in using that type of system because they can have a shielded pool from where they will be able to interact with different chains, with CX and with DEXs, while still you're getting yield, which is very important for them. And of course, for enterprises usage, as long as we comply with the ISP attestations, I will get to that later, we can prove that the treasury is depositing into kind of a good set, a good anonymity set, and is not commingling money with terrorists or North Korea or whatever. And so what that unlocks is private swaps, private fundraising, private yield donation. Super cool use case. What you want to do is being able to donate to a cause that is close to your heart. Right now, if you do it on chain, it's going to be public. Everyone will see that. So it's fine if it's something that is consensual. It's not fine if it's something that is a bit, partisan or activist or something like that. So imagine you should be able to just deposit some ETH or some USD into a pool, and then all the yield from that pool gets to a new address. And that new address is actually your donation address. And no one can link your collateral deposits to the actual yield reaching the wallets. So lending, borrowing, multi-sig, like private multi-sig. Vitalik has been raving about private multi-sig for years, still hasn't been done. Payment cards, of course, like this is a basic use case. We still don't do it. And so the compliance part, right? Actually, now we have a pretty good set of tools that can be used. You have privacy pools, so Oxbow, for example, they use ISP, so Association Set Provider. Basically, you have kind of a small set of providers, and they are the ones that are going to say, hey, we accept these guys, and we don't accept those guys. You have viewing keys, which is super cool when you think about that. As a user, you can just say, hey, the government wants to tax me, then fine, I'm just going to give them viewing keys. Proof of innocence, that's super important. You can post a ZK proof that shows that you're innocent, and so you can withdraw your funds from the pool. Same for ZK KYC. You should be able, I don't know if you use ZK Passport so far. They have a good booth at the main venue. ZK Passport is a very cool use case. As long as you can prove that anonymously you're good, then you should be able to withdraw your funds from the privacy pool. You have also policy modules, you have adapter simulation, you have ongoing monitoring. All those tools now enable actually good compliance for privacy systems. But the real question is like, do we need compliance? And what does that mean exactly? So remember, I was saying like, you don't want people to see your history if you're doing partisan thing or like activism. Well, we are all agree that, yeah, OFAC is important, we need to respect it. Okay, fine. And then, DeFi acts. Of course, if something gets hacked, you want to be able to act on the protocol. Okay, that's fine. And then, AML, of course, anti-money laundering, you want to be compliant, sure. And then, counter financial terrorism? Yes, sure, of course, yeah. But define terrorism, like from which point of view? The US, probably. And then activism, political actions. Is it something that we should be regulating and complying with? And so we are like basically in the main issue is like we are at a point where, remember the viewing keys, then what happens is the government just comes in and be like, hey guys, I want all the users to give me their viewing keys. Does that mean it's a privacy, is it a privacy pool? No, the government has access to literally everything. So we thought a lot about that at Status. We have a long history about privacy and focusing on kind of the censorship resistance and so on. And our current view is like the moment you have a backdoor implemented in your software or in your protocol, then nothing technical will stop the government from abusing it, meaning you will just give them the keys to everything. If a God mode view exists, it will be used. That's for sure. At some point, they will ask you to give them the keys, and you will have to comply. So to kind of finish on that, everything that I presented before is super compliant because I have a wife, I have 2 kids, I will never go to prison, I don't want to do that. But at the same time, I know that the system that we're building is not perfectly private because it can be abused by the government. So we need to build systems that can't be able to comply with local laws. And I think this is the hardest part. This is where we need to go now, is we need to go full steam ahead on decentralization and censorship resistance and credible neutrality, so that even if we're complied, even if we want to comply, and even if the government asks us to comply, we may be not able to do that. And I think this is the key, not being able. So it's like the don't be evil versus can't be evil, right? And if we don't do it, I'm really sad, but I don't know what we're doing here because we're building the panopticon for governments to be able to see everything we do, and that's just the worst surveillance system ever. So please, let's try to not do it. Yeah, that was basically it. Thank you.